Listen Lanarkshire is a community radio station governed by the registered charity Getting Better Together Limited. Therefore, the radio station itself retains political neutrality, and any political views or comments aired as part of political discussion programming or otherwise are not the views of Listen Lanarkshire, nor of Getting Better Together Limited. The station has a set of key commitments found on the Ofcom website, and we adhere to all necessary Ofcom rules. For more information or inquiries, please contact us at radio@shotshealthyliving.com.
Good evening, folks, and welcome back to What's the Point? The show where local politics gets stripped down, dressed up and paraded naked, warts and all, in front of you, our dear listeners, whether Kim Jong-Jim likes it or not. Now, tonight's a big one. We've rolled out the red carpet, cleared the decks, and Gerry's even combed his hair, because we're joined by none other than our part-time co-host, Cllr David Crichton. Delighted to see your good lady is granted a wee bit of a reprieve tonight, David. The ankle tag has been deactivated, parole conditions lifted, so welcome back. How are you?
Always good to receive a special pass, Greg.
Always. And Gerry, it's not all, because we're joined by another rising star. It's Cllr Barry McKluskey, who's got better patter than Tiger Woods and less driving charges. Barry's just fresh for conquering World Blind Golf European Championships, no less, although you wouldn't know it from the local press coverage, which is giving it the same attention as a motion for the only opposition in North Lanarkshire, PCNL, which is absolutely hee-haw. But anyway, as always, Barry boy, how are you?
Good, Greg, thanks very much, and it's good to be back amongst the boys again.
Well, there you go, Barry, it's great to have you back on. And as always, gentlemen, I am joined by my very own fashion accessory, the little Belsy Hill bowler himself, who has the dress sense of Che Guevara and a Turkish barber. How are you, Gerry?
Greg, as always, it's an extraordinary pleasure to be here, and surrounded by such illustrious guests. I could be nowhere else.
Well, that's fantastic. So tonight's show is shaping up to be a Royal Rumble. We've got breaking news for a major criminal hearing in Dundee that set the grapevine alight this evening. We're talking Scottish Parliament elections. Yes, Gerry, it's that time again. We've all been waiting for that 4.5 years to see a local MSP. It must be the lunar cycle back again. We're also going live on TikTok tonight, so if you're scrolling, why not join the debate or just shout at the screen like you're in the public gallery at North Lanarkshire's full council meeting. No police presence needed for our chamber, that's for sure, Jim? And on top of all that, we're diving straight right into parking charges in North Lanarkshire. We were asked to discuss this via a TikTok channel last week. Some of you might be well behind it, whilst others, well, let's just say you're about as raging as Big Paul getting called a conspiracy theorist by the council leader for performance scrutiny in that £1.8 billion single bidder contract, because these contracts happen so often, gentlemen.
Oh, yeah.
Don't worry, Jim, we've still got the footage for that special full council. And if we have any time left, we'll be covering your minimum 10% council tax rise. The Labour leader, Jim Logue, has already confirmed an expected 7% rent rise. Although, with that said, I think it's the first item will probably be consumed quite a lot of that, gentlemen, so we might need to move that to next week, so dependent on the time. So, like an SNP Group member hearing a bit of a scandal, I'll act outraged, pretend I never heard it, then use it in the WhatsApp smear campaign before tea time. Let's get this party started. So, let's get into it. Gerry boy, where do you want to start?
Well, I think the big news today is that there is an ongoing trial up in Dundee featuring the former leader of North Lanarkshire Council, Scotland's fourth largest council, and that individual appeared in Dundee. And just to give people a flavour of the issues at hand that have been dealt with by the court, I'll read a short excerpt from the Courier this evening. Former council leader is to stand trial over claims he sexually assaulted 2 men in Dundee. Jordan Linden denies 25 charges of sexual assault, stalking and threatening or abusive behaviour against 13 different men. Linden, the former SNP leader of North Lanarkshire Council, previously appeared on petition at Dundee Sheriff Court and will stand trial next year after pleading not guilty to all charges on indictment. It's alleged the 30-year-old sexually assaulted a man at an address in Dundee in September 2019 by sitting on his knee, placing his hand inside his shirt and rubbing his chest. Prosecutors allege Linden attempted to rub his crotch area before following him to a bathroom and locking himself inside with him against the man's will. He's accused of asking the man to urinate in his presence before attempting to kiss him on the cheek and attempting to bite his ear. That's a kind of just a flavour of the kind of information that is out. So there's two articles, article in the Courier and an article in the Scottish Mail by Hannah Rogers tonight, detailing pretty much the charge sheet. But obviously it's big news for any council leader or former council leader to be in such a position.
I don't think you can underestimate this. You know, at the end of the day, we've well, it was
We've suffered it, David.
But well, at the end of the day, there was 8 people left the SNP Group at that point for this particular reason. And when you look at the other report, Gerry's mentioned the Courier, but the one that effectively it's in the Mail, just some highlights of that as well. 25 charges, 25 charges being for sexually assaulting a 15-year-old. Sending indecent images to a 14-year-old. You've got to look at, there's an additional 6 assaults or alleged assaults of 5 people, including teenagers between 15 and 17. Interestingly, there was reference to sexually assaulting 3 other men between particular dates that's there, but it also said including the headquarters at North Lanarkshire Council, which is obviously the civic centre. Now that's very, very close to home for us. And that, just by process elimination, that must have been between 2017 and 2019 at that point. And the dates, we kind of need to keep an eye on these dates effectively that's there. But I mean, some of the details when you look through this is that, you know, you accused of sending sexually explicit images to 6 people, causing fear and alarm. He's accused of acting in a threatening and abusive manner that's there. I mean, the kind of list goes on, and obviously these reporters have been there in Dundee today, listening to all this that's been presented. And the court, the actual trial date has been set for the 16th of March
next year.
Yeah. So a lot of.
So I appreciate, right, that this is extensive, and obviously the information contained within it is extensive in relation to the charges. I think
the length of time, Greg.
Listen, I'm in agreement with you. I think that one of the biggest sort of feelings for me, especially because we're going to come on to talk about the SNP Group and the politics within North Lanarkshire and who was involved, where, why, what and when. But the issue for me, I know this, there seems to be a complete sort of, what would you say, a disregard towards the victims in these instances. And I appreciate that you're innocent until proven guilty, but
Absolutely.
Again, with 25 charges sitting there, a number of people that's been involved in this, my heart really does go out to those who potentially are victims at this time. I think that can be easily lost.
Well, I think
sometimes
they've reported something like 11.
Yeah,
that seems to be, for the press, for what I picked up, certainly seems to be 11 individuals that have been involved in the charging.
It's for me it is the period of time. So they're talking about from 2011 onwards. That's a significant period. It's not. It doesn't strike me as being a one-off. You know, young people will make mistakes. There's no question about that, and people make a one-off mistake. This doesn't, to my mind, reading both of these articles and previous articles, it doesn't strike me as one-off incidents rather than
The bottom line is we don't know, and the charges have been made, and I suppose the justice system
it'll
prevails
take
on the
effect.
basis that
Yeah.
you know you're innocent until proven otherwise. So that's exactly where it sits.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should cross into that.
I don't think nor will we.
But the reporting of it doesn't make
for good
for
reading.
very comfortable
No,
reading.
it doesn't
Let's
make
be honest.
But there's a correlation in this, and the correlation for me is about, now let's take that case and put that completely to one side. Again, I'm going to ask you the question in relation to this. How did the SNP Group in North Lanarkshire, and that's its leadership, for the leader of the group, the business managers of the group now, yes, there's been a few changes in there with newly appointed business managers and various others, but back in 2017, even when that individual was first elected to council, I mean, you're talking, I think it was 2018 or 19, he had to self-suspend because allegations broke in the press and charges or a police investigation was being conducted back then. So has there been a significant failing by the SNP?
I don't go back to 2019, as you know, because I was elected in 2022, but you'd be there. So you've got to look then at who the management team, if you like, of that SNP group was at that time, so you'll know.
So it was David Stocks who was the leader of the group.
Right.
He was a councillor in Ep30 at that time, and Alan Stubbs was the business manager of the group at that time, Coatbridge councillor, who's now the deputy leader of the SNP group, and Tracy Carragher was, who is the current leader of the group, was the secretary of the group at that point. So when that individual self-suspended himself, they were all the prominent positions and those who were in charge.
Surely, were any investigations carried out at that point in time to establish if there was something to be aware of as a political party? So because all political parties are duty bound.
Yeah.
If they find out that there's issues potentially to do with safeguarding or reputational risk or reputational damage, to try and mitigate that at the earliest possible opportunity, and perhaps to identify whether or not
let's take a comparison.
There are any victims.
Let's take a comparison currently within the Labour group. Now, Andrew Duffy Lawson's been suspended. It was reported in the press again that there was some sort of, I don't know, sexual activity or whatever it may be, and he's been suspended right away for the Labour group. So really,
that didn't even require charges.
That didn't need charges or any of that kind of stuff. So Labour's been proactive in relation to dealing with issues that arise. The SNP group, in my opinion, at that point in time, under David Stocks' leadership, what had happened was, because that individual managed to self-suspend himself, so really in effect remove himself from the party. I've never heard of that either, but managed to self-suspend himself so that there was no investigatory process, there was no internal discipline process, and they allowed for him to do so. And then once things had sort of cleared, now I think some aspects of this as well in relation to that investigation are connected. However, they allowed him just to come straight right back into the group, and from there that individual was able to become the business manager of the group. He was then the deputy leader of the group, and then the run up to the 2022 election. However, I've no idea what the vetting process was for that individual, but past vetting, but again, it was a long known aspect to this that these allegations and rumours were flying around for years.
I think the question for me is, Greg, like David said, I think the three of us at this side of the room are all 22 elected.
We came in 22.
Yeah. And I think at that time, obviously, we have no knowledge of the previous allegations, but the question from me would be how does SNP headquarters allow that to happen?
Well,
that he gets to become the leader of the council?
So I'm sure we're going to come on to that, because ultimately we start to look at the names involved in for a headquarters perspective. So this will be an interesting discussion, by the way.
Well, you've got history, 2019 is there, but to me there's too many similarities, because what you've got there is a leadership team, and we know just by being part of that group for a period is that the leadership team pretty much controls what happens in the group. Everything that happens.
The agenda,
the way that you
the
vote,
discussions.
the way that you're told to vote, the number of questions that you can't ask at group meetings.
What
and
you
all
can
sorts
put
of
up on your
stuff.
Facebook page, what you need to pull
I've
down.
on the Facebook page, that's a really interesting one. Facebook page is good. But something you said there that kind of worries me, Tracy Carragher, the current leader, you're saying effectively was part of a management team in 2019 when this happened, potentially with the member that we're talking about that's there in the investigation, sort of removed himself. from the party that's there. And now we've got similar allegations that were brought to bear when we were still there, effectively in 22-23, and Tracy Carragher denied all knowledge of anything that was happening within the group. And I'm sorry, that's nonsense. The other thing that gets me is that if Jordan Linden at that point removed himself from the party, is that head office, HQ in Edinburgh, would know about that.
Yeah.
And yet, when we raised concerns as a group directly to the then National Secretary Lorna Finn and said, we have real concern, we want this discussed at group. One, we were told it can't be discussed at group because it's individual. Two, we were asked to support our group member that's there. Now we've got this in email stuff, obviously.
I do.
So we should be open and honest and support our group members that's there. And yet, I don't know whether Lorna Finn was actually involved at HQ or not in 2019.
No.
Whoever was sitting there as National Secretary would be aware of potentially similar circumstances.
You ready? You ready? You ready for who it was? You ready for who it was? It was Patrick Grady, who was the National Secretary.
Oh, no.
Yes, Patrick Grady was the National Secretary in that time.
Okay. Well,
Right, so going back to that thorny issue then about who knew what and when, right, and what they did about it, which in the grand scheme of things was the square root of nothing, because nothing happened. However, promises were made back in 2023 about investigations that were going to be taking place to help the party learn lessons from what happened when Jordan Linden had to resign his position as leader of the council following allegations in the national press, and then subsequently had to stand down as a councillor, and a by-election in Jordan's seat in Bellshill came up. Now, we didn't get any feedback, nor did the Bellshill and Uddingston SNP branch, to the best of my knowledge, get any feedback from the promises made by Humza Yousaf at that time that full investigation was going to be undertaken to learn lessons from that episode.
A letter was hand-delivered, Gerry,
Well,
to the leader at the time.
Indeed. But Greg wrote to John Swinney recently
A few weeks ago.
asking for an update. And what I want to find out, Greg,
I copied in Mr. Humza Yousaf
you
as
did.
well.
You did. So Humza Yousaf was copied into that. John Swinney was copied into it, because if Humza moves on, his post holder takes on that work, and that should have been part of the handover of responsibility from one leader to the other, given that this was going to be in the press, the national press, which it is now. Why have you not had a response to that, Greg?
Why do you think, Gerry?
right, I'm sorry, I need to jump back on something that Gerry said there, where he said there was no consequence for what happened. In 2023, myself and Paul Damasio were expelled.
Yes.
Well, 6 other people chose to then leave in support of the position.
I was in
there.
Perpetual suspension.
And you were already in suspension. I'm going to come on to that if you don't mind, because there's a whole series that's attaching to that. And it's interesting because this broke. I remember it was July 2022 and I was on holiday in Devon, got a couple of phone calls, said, have you seen the news? I said, no, you're absolutely joking. I'm on holiday, I don't really care.
I was on holiday too.
Well, I can tell you that night that it broke on the Daily or the Sunday Mail, I took a screenshot of that and put it in the SNP group chat, and I highlighted in it, listen, obviously this story's just broke just now, can the leader advise us, because he's part of that group, can you advise us whether or no he will be suspended or stepping down for his role at present until any investigations that are forthcoming are concluded? Expecting
perfectly reasonable thing
to say. No problem, look, listen, we'll get to that, or we'll deal with that. I got for Kirsten Larson something along the lines of get a life. And then others then started to bombard it, and you're looking, and I think I had to actually make a comment, this isn't a cult,
that came from an elected member.
Yeah, Kirsten Larson was the very same person, if you remember. That's the only thing Jordan was accused of, was being a young person. I'm sure I've got the clip, so I'll play that when the podcast straps. But as I said again, the concern for me here is, David, and coming back to your point, I'll let you back in a second, because this is a really important point. The SNP has a governing document in relation to how its members should conduct itself. Its group rules are... Have you all got a copy? Look at you, you're all well versed tonight. These are all well versed.
You know what I'm like?
So the power of the leader could automatically suspend that individual pending investigation, and then basically turn around and say, look, listen, this is what's happened, this is where we're at. Now, this isn't expecting the leader of a council group to become judge, jury and executioner. It's to do the right thing to ensure the victim is protected, because at that point we knew there was a victim within our group, an alleged victim within our group.
Yep.
And then the other point of that is as well to dispel, because ultimately you've got to remember we all need to go back into our ward areas, and if we're going back into our ward areas being asked questions in relation to these sensational scandals that are breaking in the press, what's the answer to them? I can't talk to you about it. My leader said no. I don't want to be associated by that. I'm sure yous wouldn't either.
Yeah. I'll be honest, Greg, right? I have, there's young people live in my house, right?
Yeah.
And the fallout from that was that I did not encourage them to become involved in politics, party politics.
Yeah.
Because of all of this.
Yeah.
And it happens
Understandable.
it almost happens in every party. I'm absolutely sure it does. It just seems at the moment that there is more of it happening or happened in the SNP.
Yeah.
And at the time, I remember when the sort of muddled suspension around you and the allegations that were trumped up allegations. It was a
complete nutter setup.
The disgraceful thing about that was they used safeguarding as a means of, to use safeguarding as a weapon.
Yeah.
And that is unforgivable, and that came directly from the leadership.
Despite us having a member who came forward to make allegations against that individual.
Indeed.
And they get absolutely no safeguarding in this process. They actually get chased out the door.
And I had printed off the safeguarding policy, and as I was reading it earlier on tonight, I just put it down because those who were in charge when we were in that group clearly had absolutely no concept or desire to use safeguardings as it should have been.
Well, to be honest, Gerry, when you look at it's no worth the paper it's written on, according
Absolutely
to them.
Not. Absolutely.
According to them, it's no worth the paper it's written on.
Safeguarding is an important matter to consider from the outset. Don't think so. Due to sensitive and confidential reasons, there may be occasions where it is not appropriate to consider disciplinary matters on a forum, including peers. In such situations, advice should be sought from the National Secretary and/or local government convener.
Who were both heavily involved in this.
Absolutely right.
Yes.
So, if I can jump back, because there was mention there about the rules, and the rules were quite clear on the basis that the leader, and at this point, I can only talk about the situation, so I can't go back to 2019 as to what happened.
Of course.
But effectively, what was happening in July, August 2022 is that Tracy Carragher was installed by way of coronation
by a claim,
but as leader at that point. At that coronation, I remember raising the issues to say we really need to discuss this because of the implications politically as to what's going to happen. At that meeting, local government convener and leader of West Lothian Council, I think it is just now, Councillor Cllr Barry.
Midlothian Council.
Midlothian down on the basis of saying that will not be discussed.
Right,
That's not going to happen. The wording on that document that you mentioned earlier clearly states that the leader at that point has the authority to suspend an individual member if implicated in any legal or serious behavioural issues. Not charged, not convicted, nothing else, if you're implicated in it. That was a conscious decision by Tracy Carragher not to do that. That was it. Backed by Cllr Barry, as far as I'm concerned, it's there. And interestingly, at that point we were expressing concerns in the group. And I remember posting up, and I kind of checked it actually because I just wanted to refresh myself. 14th of August, just as all this was happening, I posted up the Facebook page to say, this is shocking. There should be such great scrutiny of the individuals and the process and everything else that takes place. 2 days later, I was called into a meeting by the business manager at that point, Cllr Barkley, an assistant business manager,
Well, I've got a good one for you on
Richard
that
Sullivan,
one. Yeah.
to say, David, sorry, that could be misconstrued on the basis that you could actually be, you know, it could be misconstrued as a negative comment about what's happening. And my reply was, well, you know, let's take away that Dubai tea, I'm sorry. That's exactly what it means. Oh, but
How dare you speak straight?
but that could be a disciplinary issue. And the answer again was, are we doing that today?
Yeah.
Because I was so annoyed at that point that somebody was trying to shut it down. And remember, Gerry's point's exactly right. We're all new councillors at that point.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people in that group were newly councillors elected 2.5 months before.
Yeah.
And yet the people that were trying to control that narrative,
Yeah.
experienced councillors, close to the individual that's concerned,
Yeah.
and disregarded the rules, and that goes right to HQ as well, on the basis of burying their heads and ignoring potentially what they should have been addressing, and we wouldn't have been here. So the outcome was 8 of us effectively.
So there's an interesting point to raise in that, because that was the only individual at the time being vocal in relation to the SNP Group's process and what should be getting followed and how it should be getting delivered. As I said again at that point, the allegation's an allegation, nobody's been proven guilty, and where our investigations followed, then due process would take place.
But you wouldn't let it go at group meetings, Greg, would you?
But the point, no, I would not, because ultimately the point in this is, and I remember back to when I was suspended, so fabricated information was presented for a board colleague of mine, I think it was, but basically with the allegation that came in, completely and utterly disproven, but as I said again, when it was there, I had to deal with Lorna Finn, who was the then National Secretary all the time, and one of the remarks in that was absolutely staggering for me was, we need to protect that individual's mental health. Now I'm sitting there looking and I'm going, you've got another individual who's a colleague of yours who's came forward with information in relation to this, but you're more interested in protecting that individual's mental health as opposed to the victim or alleged victim's mental health. And you're looking and you're going, this is all completely wrong. There's not a bit of this that even remotely makes a bit of sense. Now, come on to another point when you mentioned the business manager, Cllr Bartley, at that point. Cllr has always since 2017 been a significant cheerleader for that individual, and really in effect what happened was, when we lost the administration, when we knew it was coming with the 2 defections, I did submit an email to her to say, look, listen, in good conscience I can't vote for this group, I just can't do it. Yous are still allowing that suspension. Well, it wasn't even a suspension, it was still an SNP member.
That was nothing.
It was nothing. He just decided to jump into the back bench, but yet was being allowed to vote on one of the most vocal people in relation to that.
There's been no criminality, Greg. The police aren't involved, there's been no criminality, therefore there's nothing for us to do.
And yet their own rules use the word implicated.
So the bit for me and all of that was, what I wrote to that individual at the time, Cllr Bartley, who was the business manager, and Tracy Carrigan as the leader, asked for a free conscience vote, and what that would have allowed me to do is basically abstain or turn around and say, I'm not voting for the administration because that individual's still there. You've not actually took any legitimate process in regards to dealing with that subject matter. You imagine being a member of the public, right? And let's take this for just a principled stance. You're a member of the public, you're reading these sensational allegations being presented in the press, and within the SNP group, there's nothing to see here, Jack. Look away, everybody's united, and we'll just go on. But I'm sorry, that was not the case. We weren't all united. The processes are there to protect individuals, and even the person that's been alleged against, there's still protection mechanisms in there.
I mean, some of us, in fairness, right, some of us, the greenhorns, like myself, right, who didn't know the full nature of what happened prior to being elected in 2022 and everything that's came out subsequently, we were simply trying to hold together an administration. But I have to say that my own feeling would have been that, that's okay, hold together the administration if you can, but natural justice has to take effect.
I agree.
You cannot ignore a seismic event that potentially is going to lead to you losing the administration that you've never ever won before. You've in a huge shock, the SNP for the first time ever have taken North Lanarkshire Council from the Labour group. Never happened before. Only lasted for 70 days, right enough, but it only lasted for 70 days because they were not transparent, they did not get the messaging right. They did not say, yes, there is potentially something wrong here, let's deal with it, let's address it, and let's get to the bottom of it.
I can't get away from the point of Andrew Duffy Lawson again. Alleged things that appeared in the press. Jim Logue right away suspended for the Labour group. Suspended for the Labour group. Need to buy need if buts and maybes. And I'm sure processes have been put in place in relation to everything in the background. But here it goes again with the SNP and that idea. Is it a case it's protectionism with the ones who they've all got close relationships, of course they do. But the reality here is this stems all the way back to 2017. This wasn't new come 2022, 23. This wasn't new information that really was being presented. All SNP members, and I would really challenge them on this. Everybody was aware, especially the Labour groups and everybody else. There was rumours going about and being circulated within North Lanarkshire Council about pictures for years in relation to that certain individual. But again, the SNP group tries to circle the wagons, and we then have a local government convener, a national secretary. This again stems to the top in relation to the SNP and the level of protection. And then it was reported in the press that Peter Morrell was involved in this as well to make sure that things were quashed.
It's this implication that's there, and you talk about the implication. So right at the back of this, I don't know whether you remember, but the chronology of this was that the Jordan Linden situation rose at the end of July, I think, from memory.
27th of July.
And then within 2 weeks, or maybe even shorter, there was another press story released about Councillor Alan Stubbs on the basis of allegations of theft from Police Scotland, all sorts of nonsense.
Was that the one who threatened you with a lawyer?
I was threatening a lawyer. No, you're right. He did threaten me with a lawyer this year. Because again,
you've got a big mouth.
No, all I said was at the group meeting, we should be discussing these issues because it's going to have an impact on how the electorate see the SNP. And what happened was, effectively, Tracy Carragher said, nothing to see here, nobody's been charged, which is right, nobody was charged or anything else as far as we're aware. But again, the implication of the behaviour that brought the party into disrepute was there, and yet no action was taken. I was told to shut up.
No group vote, that's the most important.
There wasn't even a discussion, never mind a vote. Forget about votes.
Listen, I already know all this. I was suspended at the time, I wasn't even there, but I've still got the recording, so I listened to it all.
It was like, well, but you've got that, so you've got this duplicitous, consistent nature of protectionism when the rules are quite clear on the basis of saying
frightening,
this should be discussed, this has to be arrived at as a group.
And these are the very same people making decisions about your child's education, about where your child gets services, all these different things, and these people can't even organise themselves.
And continuing to put themselves forward for national government as a candidate.
So that's the question. Before we move on to the next subject matter, because I do want to come on to the Scottish Parliament elections, and I think this is probably a good sort of segue into that, because ultimately, as I said, we could spend all night talking about this. Still an active court case. Let's stay away from it. Point being to this is again, I would highlight one last point on this, and the last point would be the SNP sold a promise to the people in North Lanarkshire, and that was change. Change was coming. This is all change. And the bit for me I know of this is they betrayed that trust. We've only been able to maintain an administration for 8 weeks in full knowledge
70 days
in full knowledge that there was rumours galore, rife, everything else, and there was already previous experience with potential suspensions and investigations and various other things, police investigations previously in relation to that individual. So for me, it's not about being personal, absolutely not. The thing for me is you've got a number of victims that's involved in this. Nobody's gave them a second thought, and within our group process, nobody gave them a second thought either, because they were never a consideration.
You know what's sorry, I know you want to move on this there, but see when you look at the outcome of this, where you had 8 SNP councillors feel so moved that between the stuff that was happening against you, the ignorance basically shown our concerns about that situation that was developing with Jordan Linden at that point that's there, and yet they chose, there was an active choice that protectionism was to stay in place, to sacrifice, regardless of how many people left or anything else that was involved. That didn't matter. At all costs, that group and the group leader between Tracy Carragher and others that were there protected the situation. And we had long-standing councillors like Tracy Carragher, Kirsten Larson, Alan Stubbs, Sullivan, Hughes. I mean, you could list a whole series of people that all openly stated support. And there was an email sent, sorry,
That's all right.
An email sent because I had questions, said, well, what's the situation? Why would we allow, at this situation, Jordan Linden to return to the group at this point? And I was told that it's fully expected that Jordan will return and take a full and open part within the group.
Yeah, yes. And then appeared at the Christmas night out.
And
they're all getting their photos too.
And everybody, well, not everybody, the majority or minority of people were raising major concerns about the handling of the whole situation.
He did appear at a few group meetings. Not many. He appeared at
all my disciplinary aspects. So he was able to attend.
Let's be clear
when I was a strong proponent of them.
The reason that allegations were made against you, which led to a disciplinary hearing, were this: you would not let this go.
No.
And at every group meeting, every Monday, it became laborious for those who were in control because he was uncontrollable, right? And at that point in time, he's supported by you, equally uncontrollable. And because of that, the allegations had to be made that you had behaved in a bullying
penmanship.
Yeah,
my goodness.
That you'd behaved.
But the point for me is I didn't do this to get to Jordan Linden. The point for me was there was a number of victims reported in that newspaper article. Wait, who's standing up for them? If nobody. You think about it, we go out there every single day and we go into our wards and we're standing up for every single person within that area. We try our best of our ability to defend them in relation to housing cases, parking charges, all these plethora of things. We're there to stand up for those individuals. Who was standing up for the alleged victims? And that's what grind my gears bigger than anything else, because I'll tell you something, if that was your child, Craig, and you've got a group of individuals in there protecting somebody, it just Craig, doesn't sit easy with me.
In an indirect way, I'd say probably more direct for you, but in an indirect way, the 8 of us did that because what we were pushing for natural justice to take place for you, because all you wanted to happen was a full investigation into the circumstances which led to this individual going through a vetting process untouched, rising to the position of leadership of council, taking the leadership itself, and then the whole thing crashing down. And that was all that we were pushing for, was a full and frank investigation so that the party could learn from its mistakes.
Do you know an interesting point? Let me tell you an interesting point. I remember having a conversation with Fiona Foran, who's a Motherwell councillor, is she? We're a Wishaw councillor. This was about 6 weeks after that newspaper article appeared in the press, and Fiona Foran's comments to me was, Jordan Linden stolen Fulton McGregor's volunteer list to ensure that he has an MSP pass to get into Holyrood. And you're looking and you're going, are you for real? The guy has just appeared in the press with all these allegations. He said he stepped down as the leader of the council group, everything else, but yet he's still in the midst of things, getting a pass to be in Holyrood. Now, why? I don't know if there's any truth to it. I know I'm sure somebody out there can do an FOIR in relation to that. Perhaps. But the point that I would make in regards to that aspect, why was he being allowed anywhere near Holyrood at that point in time, considering the fact that you have just lost the council in the most dramatic fashion? You have a number of individuals who are still not having any representation, who are alleged victims, and again, nobody's putting them at the forefront. I just found it staggering.
It was at the garden. It was at the
Royal Garden Party. That's right. Who, again, the Lord Lieutenant Assistant,
and he had to stand down.
The thing for me, Greg, is, and we're going back to the SNP as a whole at that time. Now, leading up to the 2022 elections, SNP were in a strong position in North Lanarkshire, and as Gerry had mentioned earlier about taking over the council for the first time in history in North Lanarkshire.
A huge event,
the fourth largest council, they're taking it over. How was he allowed to be in the position when they knew the potential of taking over that council? That news story breaking, how did the SNP as a whole allow that to happen, to know that the potential of it getting swiped away from them?
It was a house of cards. And you know who smelled it? Do you know who smelled it? It was a house of cards.
The Labour group.
The Labour leader.
The Labour leader.
Jim Lowe knew exactly.
See, I
what
always
was coming
thought,
down the line.
and again it's hyperbole, but I always thought that they were happy for him to be in that position because it would be easy to knock him out.
Well, the damage would be terminal.
But again, this is stupid people, and stupid people do stupid does. So really, in effect, allow him to be the leader. 6 months to a year or whatever, we can have a word and tell him to stand down, and then that way, I said, that opens up positions, especially for those who are, again, absolutely bonkers with ambition. So you get Carragher in there, Jesus Christ, and you get Alan Stubbs in there, and you get others in there, and the point for me here is again that ambition has been fulfilled because they're now the leader and the deputy leader and others. There's other names in there that we haven't covered as well. Alan Masterton, who's Cumbernauld, who was the deputy leader at that time. Richard Sullivan, who was the assistant business manager and then took the position of business manager. Again, Cameron going to these individuals as well, trying to highlight that something significant had went on, and again alleged went on, and completely ignored and turned away. So much so the leader of the council, or the SNP Group, that denies flatly that Cameron never approached her.
Do you know what I could not stand either, Greg? When it became clear that the trumped up allegations against you held absolutely no water whatsoever, and one of my ward colleagues told me that was she'd read them all and said it was a load of crap.
Aye.
A load of crap. But the fact was there was individuals that held senior positions in that executive group.
Yeah.
When myself and other colleagues had put emails out to say I dissent to the whole process of trying to get you suspended and hold you in suspension in perpetuity. I dissent to it because it's the wrong thing to do. Do you know what they did? They sent emails around saying these emails are causing me emotional stress. They're causing me emotional.
Because they're being held accountable.
Yeah.
I also remember Kirsten Larson's one as well, trying to approach members and say, when it was coming to a case of the disciplining, and if you remember, they were trying to grab anything at all that they could possibly try and get hold of, and it was actually quite pathetic. But one of them was emails to officers, and really in effect what I was doing was holding the council to account, and I said, look at the way he's speaking to officers. Every email is completely and utterly professional and courteous and doing what it has to do.
I read them all.
And she's look at the way he spoke to me when I was the convener, and I think all I asked at the time was for a meeting where to talk about a local primary school that was being built in my area, and it was all the waffle that you usually get out of. And I remember that I had enough of the conversation. Just basically says, because we'd lost the administration at that time, it was Angela Campbell who was the education convener because it moved on to Labour, and Angela had actually been quite helpful, so I thought, do you know what, I'll actually take it up with the new convener now, thanks very much, but I'm not interested in talking to you. I'm definitely moving on now because we need to talk about the Scottish Parliament election. I think we could dwell too much time on this, but again, I'm going to come back into it a wee bit. I'm a wee bit of a hypocrite here. Scottish Parliament elections are fast approaching, and right now we're starting to see your MSPs after a long 4.5 years with our propaganda out there. Everybody boots in the ground, although the numbers are dwindling. Two questions I've got for you. One, has the SNP completely lost all trust in North Lanarkshire, given the fact that those individuals that we've been speaking about there in the calamitous way that they lost the administration and the betrayal of trust? And in addition to that as well, what I would also ask, is it going to help any MSP candidate that those named individuals that we were talking about there are in the photographs with the MSPs? Because ultimately, from a PR perspective, surely to goodness, if you're wanting to stand for the Scottish Parliament, you'd be distancing yourself from any negativity in your campaign.
Personally, if I was a risk manager, I would be looking at the potential of success going forward and looking to mitigate any of those risks. Knowing what we know about this case, I would be looking, if I was a candidate, to remove any individual who was attached.
Because they're all in the 40s big time. I've seen the Claire.
That's my own personal
Claire Adamson's campaign 40s, and Thomas is there. And then others, you're looking at it, the cenotaph and that kind of thing at the weekend with the Remembrance Sunday, Carragher's laying a wee further, and you're looking and you're going with Fulton you're looking and you're going, I appreciate that the Sunday, the Remembrance Sunday, shouldn't come into any politics, absolutely not, but you're looking
we're in
and you're
campaign
going,
mode as well.
It's campaign mode, and you're looking and you're going, do you know what, the last Remembrance Sunday before an election, they're all out in force. I think there's a picture of them all lined up a wall, remember? I say that to you. A rogues gallery.
Yeah. You look at, see the remembrance thing, that it kind of upsets me a wee bit, because I go in a pair of specs and that's me. I don't put it on Facebook. There is absolutely it doesn't
not.
sit comfortably
Absolutely
with me,
not.
But all of a sudden you've got people, and I remember now I'm trying to think of the order of this happening, but effectively I remember the likes of Tracy Carragher going and laying a wreath on her own at the Cenotaph somewhere in Coatbridge,
right,
because she hadn't received one from the Provost to go and do it. But it was all on Facebook, it was all kind of for show, look at me, this is what I'm doing, blah blah blah. But your point is exactly right, is that if you've got any kind of association with someone that you think, is that going to make me stand or look in a good light? And Gerry's right, the risk management that's attached to that.
She's a member of staff for Fulton McGregor. She works in Fulton McGregor's office, and again the others work in the offices. That's what I was going to say. That might be the reason why they're appearing in the propaganda. But as I said, again, Scottish Parliament elections, do you think that the SNP potentially, and I appreciate SNP stonking it in the polls at the moment, however, there is a reality within North Lanarkshire. I think people in North Lanarkshire tend to vote a wee bit differently. If it's a case of any negativity surrounding your campaign, etc., they'll tend to go with an alternative. So is this an open goal for Labour come Scottish Parliament election?
You've got to look at the timing of this. The election is in May.
Yeah.
This case is likely to be in March. It's going to run for about 2 weeks. Depending on what happens in that case, and I'm not going to preempt anything.
Absolutely not.
It could be absolutely catastrophic. So anybody with half a brain cell should be trying to get the mitigation done now to ensure that there is as little damage in the event that this does not look good at the end of it. By the way, Jordan Linden may walk away and be as free as a bird.
Might be the case.
He may be found
not
guilty of all.
Never actually been. It's about the process.
It's about the process, not the person. You're absolutely right. But he might walk away, and that's fine. But looking at the sheet in front of me, the 25 charges that are being made, it does not look good, and therefore the reputation of the party, the reputation of the candidates has to be the primary object of protection. And to my mind,
Gerry, that was always the case. As we were arguing the case as and when this was unfolding, there was nothing targeted to the individual.
No,
absolutely nothing.
It could have been anybody.
It was about the process, about HQ handling it. It was about the way that Tracy Carragher effectively misled the group. And we've got evidence of that. We've got written evidence of that, where it contradicts what the National Secretary said in terms of what she was telling us. So it's about the people that's around that, and their behaviours and the way that they put forward a narrative that was untrue. And just as a direct comparison, I'm sorry, I'm jumping back.
That's okay.
Effectively, you're saying there that Greg was suspended on absolutely nothing that's there, and then we took up that mantle along with our other concerns. And simply so you've got someone that effectively is left under a cloud of sexual allegations. You've got somebody that's still there that came through the other side of whether they were allegations of theft and stuff that's there. I was expelled for the party because I asked.
Because you asked that question.
Because I asked council and Tracy Carragher to take a step back for 10 days to reassess information that she had put forward in front of council officers that was clearly and deliberately not true, inaccurate, and were lies. And within 2 weeks, I was suspended, and within another 2 weeks, I was gone. Mm-hmm. And you think of the parity or the disparity, the stuff that's attached to that, and you tell me there is something not wrong, deeply wrong within that group.
I wrote to Des Murray about that, highlighting to my disgust at the lack of truthfulness in relation to the motion that Tracy Carragher had put forward.
Yep.
And I set out quite clearly that it was not in line with the role and principles, and he gave me a very polite response to say that he doesn't get involved in group issues. But the fundamental issue about the motion that you raised was this: what Tracy wanted to do in the original motion was to not let anybody know that we had all resigned from all the committees, right?
Yeah.
And she would have been unable to go to her group and go, they've all left, you're going to have to go to that committee.
Yeah.
They're going, well, I'm not going to all these committees. What she wanted to do was put forward a motion that detailed that she had removed him only from his committees as a show of strength, as a leadership show of strength. And in the end, what did she do? She ended up losing 8 members of her group. And given that she'd already and then she lost Jordan, and she'd already lost the 2 coils. It was madness.
It borders on lunacy.
Madness.
And it borders on the fact that you have no character to actually make a professional decision as to the risks that are in front of you, as opposed to what potentially could be the outcome of it.
Anyway, I need to take my hat off to you boys, because you have managed to turn that subject matter for the Scottish Government elections right back into an entire debate.
I'll tell you why, because that individual,
because it's the same people.
No, that individual had put herself up to be a candidate in the ward where I live. Who? Tracy Carragher.
Well,
Tracy Carragher was looking to be...
That was the one where she highlighted.
So she's
highlighted.
And I also live in that ward.
So she's looking to be the SNP candidate
with no employment history, no employment experience.
Irrespective of that, in Bellsill and Uddingston, right? And nobody will know her, and people will come to me and they'll go, this lassie Carragher, what's she all about, Gerry? And I'm going to have to tell them what I know. And am I going to be able to vote for the SNP if she was my candidate? There's absolutely no way on God's earth.
You clever gentlemen for getting that back in and making it a subject matter. As I said, really quickly, will the SNP be affected by this?
Yes. Only in North Lanarkshire, I think.
David?
Yes.
I tend to agree. Right, okay, we're going to cut for a wee quick break, a wee couple of songs, and then we'll be back at 8 o'clock. It's 5 to 8. So we're going to come back at 8 o'clock. We'll be on TikTok Live, etc. So please feel free to join the debate there. We will be discussing, and we're going to have to be really quick in discussing this, but parking charges in North Lanarkshire Council, and in addition to that as well, that reported 10% minimum council tax rise. Is it worth it? Are people feeling the pinch, or is it a case that the council could potentially raise that up to 12-13%? I'm sure you will be shocked to know where 2% of that money goes. So let's have that as a conversation when we come back. Back to What's the Point. We're actually about to go live now on TikTok, so feel free to join us on that as well. So gentlemen, just before the break we had highlighted that we were going to be discussing parking charges tonight. So somebody had contacted us last week on TikTok when we did our first TikTok live and asked us to look into it. Now, they had a raft and a plethora of information about dealing with North Lanarkshire Council on this subject matter. And when folk were looking to try and raise the point with North Lanarkshire Council, it appears that no information's ever forthcoming. And what they'd highlighted to me was, any time they were making inquiry in relation to a parking charge, they were getting told to submit a freedom information request, and then that freedom information request was going in, and the information that was being provided to them was completely irrelevant. So, a couple of things in this. One, quick question with regards to... when were you consulted with regards to the backroom administration for this? Because ultimately, as the 77 elected members of North Lanarkshire Council, when parking was decriminalised, that should have went to a full council meeting surely to see whether or no we've got A, the facility, B, the capacity, and C, the opportunity to do it ourselves. Surely that sits with us.
I was reading today that we've been in a position to do this since 2018, that the back room facilities are there.
Yep.
But for some reason we outsource an aspect of that, the administrative side of that, as I understand it to be. So when you receive a parking ticket, it's it goes to Glasgow City Council to be administered, and the payment and all that goes through there. Fortunately, I've never had one, Barry, so
neither have I, 'cause I'm registered blind, Gerry.
But that's my understanding.
You're talking to the wrong one about that.
How is your driving these days?
The fundamental
We've not invented prescription Wendy's yet.
the fundamental issue for me is that see no matter what you outsource, there's a cost to that. You know, why would you not want to develop your in-house specialism for that?
An interesting point I would raise at this time is the fact that how much is it annually costing us to do the deal with Glasgow City Council? About
550,000 or
550.
I didn't know it
over
was that.
£500,000.
Wow.
So over £500,000, right? Now I can give you an example. I've had a couple of cases in my own ward area. Now I don't know about you guys, but when parking was decriminalised, the first thing that I read in the local press was that it was going to be a focus on town centres. That was where they were aiming to obviously deliver parking attendance. Now there will be some people, and I totally take that on board as well, who are all for this. So there should be parking charges in certain areas. But the reality of the situation is the experiences that I've seen in my constituents. One instance was in Moodiesburn. There was a disabled bay. Disabled bay has completely eroded. There is nobody in the address any longer. They died 5 years ago, and basically a pensioner was looking to park her car to get into the house and take her messages up. She parks the car, takes the messages in, and comes back out to basically move the car a wee bit and gets a parking fine.
Oh, because she's in the bay.
Because she's in the bay. Now the bay's completely eroded. There is nobody with a disability badge there. Right. She then comes to me and says, "Look, Greg, I've received this fine. Can you take this up for me?" No problem. Go back to North Lanarkshire Council. North Lanarkshire Council tells me you need to contact Glasgow. We have no authority, no say, no nothing. And it's a cop-out, in my opinion, by using that provision. Go to Glasgow City Council. There's an appeals process, but it's all online. So again, looking at it, if you're no fay with these kind of systems, how are you going to lodge that appeal first and foremost?
Is that North Lanarkshire appeals?
No,
process?
It's a Glasgow City Council appeals process.
Okay.
So the position is when you go to appeal that, and this was the bit that was the most concerning part for me, there was no information in relation to how you appeal these kind of things, nothing from North Lanarkshire Council's website either. And when you appealed the process, it was Glasgow City Council officers who were deciding whether or not the parking fine stood.
Even though the jurisdiction
and the officer is North Lanarkshire bound, right? Wow. But it gets better. So the ticket's issued. In the meantime, because of the delay of this, she's missed her window of opportunity to settle in early. So it's now full price, and the fine continues to rise. So rather than us taking it to the Smalls Claims Court or Glasgow Sheriff Court, the person in particular decided, you know what, I'm just going to pull it. No, I'm not going to appeal it. So there's too much of a risk for me in case I end up here,
so
there,
paid the double.
So paid the double. Next couple of weeks, same parking attendant, same person. They're back out again, and because it's easy prey, there's another ticket. Now again, the issue for me in this is, and potentially this could be happening across the authority. I'm sure people that are listening tonight can get in touch with us via TikTok now and via We're Live. Is this standard practice across the authority, or is this just something that's accidentally happened? The point that really, really concerns me is, as an elected member in North Lanarkshire, if a constituent of yours comes to us and says, look, listen, I'm looking for representation on this, what are we meant to say? Are we meant to say, no, I'm sorry, Jack, that falls under Glasgow's jurisdiction, so you have to take that up directly with them? Where is the sort of leniency? Where is the sort of leeway in this? Where do we end up?
I'll be honest, I think if something like that came in, for me, I would look to leave it with an officer of the administration.
So I've got...
Not an officer of the administration, an elected member.
Chris Dott's a person that made contact with. They're saying, not telling you that you can take it to an adjudicator. It's not clear, the legal process. So again, that kind of confirms the point that I'm raising in relation to this, because ultimately, if there is no clear process in North Lanarkshire Council's website, and one of us need to check that, by the way, pretty quickly to see what that actual process is, then really in effect what we're doing is like that wee woman in Moodiesburn. Is it a case that we're just going to increase everybody's parking charges because they think there's hope for an appeal in there, or something?
I think in that circumstance, that very first circumstance, in this kind of moves away a wee bit from the administrative side and the outsourcing and all the rest of it. But if someone has applied for a parking bay because they've got a disabled badge and the badge is handed back in, the council must know the location of that. So if that person passes away and the bay's still there, why don't you just go and remove it? Now I know, and the rules around it, because when I worked in housing, I did a wee bit of work on this. So even although you put the application in and it's awarded because you've got the need for it, it's not your bay. Any Tom, Dick or Harry who's got a blue badge can park in it. Yep. But the only reasonable way that you can manage that, if that person passes away and the badge is handed in, or they move house and you get to know that they've moved away, just remove the markings, and then that poor wee woman. It's not a hard task to remove them. And Moody's Burn doesn't have to endure a double bill of parking charges.
The other incident effectively was there was a cyber attack, obviously at the end of June, I think it was.
Oh, there was. That's right.
In Glasgow City Council, is specifically around parking penalties.
And we were impacted.
And the payment of the and people didn't have the facility effectively go onto the online portal and pay their fines. So it could I mean, I've no idea. I'm guessing there was a telephone situation that you could possibly have backed that up by. But then you've got North Lanarkshire residents dealing with Glasgow City Council. I don't really know how that works. I mean, whether there's cost savings or whether it's cheaper to pay the 550,000 to Glasgow City Council as opposed to trying to run it in-house. It seems an awful lot of money to me. But you're also then you're then exposed to someone else's payment portal, aren't you, and someone else's IT systems and all that kind of stuff, which is what happened at the end of June.
We know what happens when you end up in that kind of situation.
A solitary IT system.
You end up with
£1.8 billion for it.
With 13,000 kind of falsified repair reports going through.
Of course you do. So again, look, listen, that's the question here. The question here is, okay, right, we're going to have parking enforcement. I think the majorities agree to a certain degree with that. Not everybody's going to be happy, but really you should be making the process fair, and most importantly, you should have the information available to people to understand it. Personally speaking, I don't believe that Glasgow City Council should be getting paid exorbitant amounts of money every single year to manage the backroom, considering North Lanarkshire Council's the highest employee or employer and with regards to this authority,
almost 17,000 employees.
And surely, employees, God, we've got enough capable, incredible staff in there to be able to run and manage such operations.
I think we should be doing more to bring things in-house.
Yeah,
that's my take on it. We should be spending less on outsourcing, on consultancy fees, and I've put this to council, where we can spend to save, spend and invest in the people in North Lanarkshire, developing the specialisms that we need, whether it's through parking, whether it's through the Care Academy, whether it's through HR, whether it's through legal, solicitors, all of that, procurement law, you name it. Why don't we just do that ourselves and save the millions? I mean, that contract, that 1.8 billion pounds contract that you're talking about.
Don't forget the billion at the end part.
No, so that a 1.8 billion contract still attracts the need for around about £5 million worth in consultancy fees to get you through the procurement and legal process, which protects you, apparently, it protects you from any potential of bidders.
But it didn't, did it?
Well, no, it didn't. It didn't. And
you get into out of court settlements and all sorts of stuff.
Well, you do.
Well, my question in relation to this: who pays the toll fees? Who would have been pounding your cars if it's a case that you're illegally parked and you're having to remove it? You're going to have to go to Glasgow to go pick your car up.
You could raise a motion for that at council.
It'll never come to the dates.
It'll never ever happen, right? We'll never ever see it, right? But one takeaway for me tonight is going to be, Chris, I know you're watching us live online. We'll go away and make some inquiries in relation to that. We'll try and produce a motion, and if you've missed any of the previous shows, what's the points about? We highlight the fact of the lack of democracy that exists within North Lanarkshire. It's the Lord Provost that makes ultimately the decision, and where there are no emotions competent or not based on the size of giraffes and unicorns' tears. So, so really in effect, that's the arbitrary process that Kenny Duffy employs to make sure that political discourse and debate is shut down in North Lanarkshire. But we will take something away for the night, Chris, and hopefully we'll come back to you with a wee bit of feedback about that. Right, let's move on away from parking charges now, and I want to come on to the 10% council tax rise. Jim's already confirmed it, our beloved and illustrious leader, Jim Jung, and his democratic people in North Lanarkshire. And really, in effect, Big Jim's already came out and says you're already getting a 10% council tax rise. So we know that that's the baseline. Do we think it will be A, more or B, less? And the other part is, I know the SNP will try and kid on somehow that they did 9.99999% and a completely ridiculous situation. But basically with that council tax rise, are people thinking that they're getting value for money? We'd love to hear from you on TikTok Live as well. Is it a case that you feel that a council tax rise is justified, or is the services in North Lanarkshire absolutely ridiculous that you don't feel it's relevant anymore?
I think it probably is going to be 10%.
I don't think there's a probably. He's confirmed it.
And for every percentage increase, it generates £1.7 million. So a 10% increase generates £17 million.
Yeah.
So £17 million against a budget deficit on the positive side of around 50 odd £million. That's a big hunk. And I know 2% of that goes to other places. Other projects.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. So a couple of years ago we had what was called Active and Creative Communities Review. If you recall, I actually got a Standards Commission complaint for the process of it and my line of questioning for it, along with my good pal David Crichton. But what we had was a number of community facilities across North Lanarkshire Council all being shut down. Now I need to very carefully watch what I say here, David, or we'll be back on from the standards.
Well, no,
at the direction of Jim Logue, the Labour leader, and nobody else was involved in that. So
double jeopardy.
Does it count?
Does it count?
We can share a taxi.
It's a kangaroo court, so I'm sure it will. But anyway, the position here is all the community facilities were being closed at Jim's direction. Again, David, you know what I'm doing there?
Oh,
I'm making sure I'm on the right side of the tracks this time. And under that direction of Jim Logue, what we had was a number of community facilities across North Lanarkshire, more so sports facilities, to be closed. And one of the solutions to that is everybody's getting a new community hub, and these new community hubs, we're going to be expected to get into a primary school during the day and go to the gym, or we're going to be expected to go here, there and everywhere during school times and through school corridors to get access, or playgrounds, to get access to these sports facilities. Now, the reality of that 2% council tax that you're talking about, if you take other local authorities, let's use our neighbour Glasgow for talking sake, that money is taken and it's spent on infrastructure investment within the local ward areas. So that 2%, where it equates to 6, 12, 13 million, irrelevant, but that money is reinvested back into local communities. Whereas in North Lanarkshire, what we've said is no, we're taking that, we're going to put it towards our community hub building programme, and that's going to pay the interest on all the loans that we're taking for all these buildings. Now, what I would ask people at home is, do you think that's an appropriate use of your council tax? Is that justification for increasing your council tax? Do you want to be part of the North Lanarkshire Ambition project with all these new fancy buildings out the wrapper that we're all going to be paying for years and years to come? And hence I say, David, I hope I've not really started something here. Before I get them started, it could potentially be a new incarnation of a PFI model. So, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And now Gerry's eyes are
sorry.
I don't want to talk about PFI tonight.
But basically, could it be a new PFI model? Because ultimately we're entering into these covenants and loan repayment schemes and everything else that we're going to be paying for years and years to come. Or for what? A brand new shiny building when we already had the community facilities with a wee bit of TLC. They could be back to their best. And that's the question. 2%? Is it worth it?
People expect this money, regardless. They expect, as we know, the services to be provided under their council tax contributions that they're making. And if they continually see these significant rises, and they see bins not being emptied, or being charged extra for collecting garden waste, or they see the collection schedule being different, or they see their cemetery not being tended properly, or their grass cut less frequently, that rightly so, people have to question and say, well, what the hell is going on? Where is the financial management? Where is the choices that are being made in terms of setting these budgets? And we've said before is that the whole process of this budget system is flawed. We sat last year on the budget basis, we were presented figures on a £1.2 billion turnover of a corporation, basically, which is North Lanarkshire Council, and had we not have asked as a group for a 20-minute recess to actually assess the spending that was being proposed on these kind of levels, it would just have gone through on the nod.
Yeah.
And I remember people were you could hear the gnarling of teeth and the gnashing of teeth, and people snarling away at the back is because we had the audacity to ask them to say, well, just take a bit. Let's look at the figures and assess it. But no. We don't want to do that. It's already been decided before we get into the chamber. So it's unfortunate. People need to realise that the input that individual councillors have in terms of budget setting and council tax setting and rent increases is absolutely nothing, minimal, unless you're part of a Labour group, in which case you're just told to do what you're told.
Well, I think there's an important point in there. Let's dispel the myth of the budget. So what we'll see over the next couple of weeks is potentially North Lanarkshire Council coming out with a consultation in relation to the budget. What areas do you want to save money on? Where do you think we should cut? That will happen. So again, I think that's a good thing that happens. When it comes back to councillors, it really comes down to the political makeup of the council, and we've explained this on numerous occasions before. Each will go off into our own political groupings. We've got 4-6 weeks to produce a legal, competent budget. And basically what you get is a menu or a suite of cuts that we're meant to decide what it is that we want to cut. But let me finish this point.
I wasn't
the only budget that is going to be accepted, it doesn't matter, you could have the best ideas.
It's the president's budget.
Ever, Gerry. You could rework that budget, save the council nearly £100 million per year, and also make sure that everybody has got champagne service in North Lanarkshire. Yet it will not be accepted because it is not the Labour administration's budget. Now, you'll have the pantomime with the Tories kidding on that they're putting forward some separate budget, but really in effect it's a coalition, so the Tories will ultimately vote for the Labour budget. We have independents who will vote with the Labour budget, meaning arithmetically in that chamber there is hee-haw's chance or a snowball's chance in hell of anybody getting forward any budget proposal other than that Labour budget.
What you're trying to say, right, is this.
Yes.
North Lanarkshire Council were the new North Lanarkshire Council was founded in
North Lanarkshire
in
Labour
1996, right? Now, what you're trying to put forward to me, and I don't know if I can buy this, Greg. You're trying to say to me that just because it's been a Labour budget that's been through every one of the 29 years that North Lanarkshire Council's been in existence, that doesn't mean to say that it's going to have to happen on year 30.
So we could have a leap year this year then.
We could have a leap year, but I don't think we will.
Outstanding open debate and collegiate working in
It's a lovely word, David.
It's a great word.
It's a lovely word.
In arriving at a consensus that actually makes a difference to North Lanarkshire, but it's not going to happen. We know it's not going to happen. And effectively all the man-hours and stuff that you put in towards budget. I remember one of our budget proposals, which was honestly was outstanding.
Insulation of every house.
Was insulation of every house that was there.
Yep.
And in terms of
we found the money for it. We found the money. Yeah.
And yet Labour sat there, and because it was our proposal, they scoffed and they laughed and they did their usual sneering across the chamber. When actually, if they'd stopped and just had a look at it and said, that might actually work, can we build that in with stuff that we've got?
No.
That was never going to happen. It was never going to be there. And the only other thing, Gerry, you said there, it's all been Labour, but it's interesting because I'm absolutely certain that when you look back at some of the budgets that we've been involved in since 2022, is that there's already deals being struck with the SNP Group as well.
Oh, of course.
I would imagine.
It's a paid opposition, so the leader of the SNP Group gets paid, so they're going to do as they're told.
But it's really quite sad, isn't
Yeah.
it? You have to change that dynamic. You have to change the number that exists within that council, and you have to take it away from Labour and SNP. I don't think Tories will be there after 2027 anyway. Their argument will be neither will we, which is fine. But you have to take it on the basis that these major parties that are whipped and tell you how to vote, regardless of how you might feel and whether you represent your communities or not, is that you will do what you're told.
Well,
you have to remove that mass number.
There's a bigger issue in all this for me, and the bigger issue is Jim Logue, under his current leadership, has really in effect gave away all elected member powers under delegated authority. So that very essence alone of the fact that budgets being produced, we go through that plethora or menu of cuts. How can we not decide what we think should be getting cut, ask officers to go away and design aspects, I think, or where could we save money? But again, you've got to remember, we're elected by the people in North Lanarkshire to represent them. So when we talk to our constituents, Greg, I don't think that's really needed there, or something like that. Surely we should have an opportunity to present that, but we don't.
There's no opportunity to debate any of that, right?
No.
What happened at the last...
Gerry, let's get it right. There's no opportunity to debate anything.
No, there's not.
Full stop. Yeah.
Full stop.
There's not, and the reason for that is what happened at the last policy and strategy committee. A paper was put through the most important piece of policy going through this entire council period between now and 2027. And here's what they put through by acclaim without even asking a question. You were silenced. We were unable to ask any questions.
So
the SNP didn't ask a question. The Tories didn't ask a question. The Independents didn't ask a question.
I'm starting to feel unloved by the way that they don't want me asking questions.
Effectively, here's what's happened. You will not be able to raise any motion between now and the time we're next elected, May 2027, because standing orders and the scheme of delegation to officers are protected under this review. So as soon as you go to change standing orders, you'll be told no, the 6 month rule must apply until this review's finished. The review's not going to be reported back to council until December 26. And even if the recommendations go through there's a 6 month rule after that. So we'll not be able to change anything until the next council. No. So it's a scam. It's a scam, and people need to know that.
Comments coming in. Let me take you through a few on Lanarkshire window cleaning. Elected on a promise. What happens after that is a matter of talent and tenacity. Couldn't agree more with you, John. If you don't have that, you're getting nowhere. Why are officers allowed to stay in a particular position? I think we're talking about delegated authority there. Again, look, listen, this isn't personal in relation to officers. This is ultimately a Labour leader's decision.
Politicians.
He's allowing for that to happen. So really, in effect, what they're doing is discouraging discourse and debate.
Absolutely.
There is absolutely nothing. So if we take North Lanarkshire, for instance, and I think it's a great example because North Lanarkshire's a patchwork quilt. We're made up of towns, we're made up of semi-rural villages, we're made up of all sorts of things. And within that, each area is different. So, stuff up my ward area isn't necessarily going to reflect the challenges or issues in your ward area. Again, there will be similarity, but the majority of things is going to be different. So if we can't get the opportunity to produce a budget set to us by our electorate, then really in effect, what is the point of having a councillor? What is it? Because this is a pantomime. This is basically what it's became.
It's developed into just that, a pantomime.
Right, why can't you raise a motion so that you all just hush and don't upset the boat? Well, I think that's
pretty
basically it. That's basically what's happening. So if we present a motion, we're the first ones to get told you're on to
what I would say to that person is watch on the webcast the last policy and strategy committee, item 9, and you'll see how it's done. It was a masterful piece of convenership and chicanery to shut down, supported by others. So, but watch it, and that's how it's done.
So again, coming back to the budget setting process, I would ask you a legitimate question, because I was laughing at that one. We did put the budget forward. I think God, my ward colleague Michael McPake tried to attack me last year, I think it was, because we weren't forthcoming with a budget, and I was critical of the budget, and he used that. Well, you did produce a budget. Well, I'm sorry, we're not going to entertain something that we don't have an opportunity to have a say. It's going to be a Labour budget. That's the bottom line. You're going to decide. Supported by the Tories.
How many years has it been a Labour budget, Greg?
And independent. Stop being so stupid. Why would we waste our time? However, the point that made me laugh was the criticalness of the SNP. And if you recall, the SNP got challenged by the then Section 95 officer and basically told, you do not have a legal budget. So we find ourselves in an absolutely bizarre sort of a twilight zone in North Lanarkshire. It is backward, there is no doubt. The politics is absolutely backward. So when it comes to collegiate working, Barry, let me tell you this, I am all for collegiate working, but I'll no work with BAMs. That's basically it. Any other comments you want to go into in relation to the budget before we kind of start tying things up?
No, it's not budget related, but it's interesting. The big chap over here, Mr. Crichton, put something up about a petition for roadworks.
Oh, right? Yeah.
And I got a phone call at the weekend from an irate parent who, she just got my details and said, I've been watching you guys, and I've seen some videos that you had put up about roadworks being, put in places where if you go one way, the alternate route is blocked off because there's roadworks there as well. And her kids had been having real trouble getting to school in the morning, and because it was impossible for them to get there in time because of the roadworks, they were getting into trouble, and they were getting held in at lunchtime.
A number of people contacted me saying it was taking 40 and 50 minutes to travel just over 2 miles.
Wow.
And every road that you seem to go on, and I thought that can't possibly be, so I jumped in the car.
Well, I got caught in it last week.
Like every possible route. I'm beginning to think now that there's some kind of planning system in North Lanarkshire Council that wants to keep me in my house because effectively it was as bad as people were saying. So you're right, I kind of had a wee rant on one of the videos that I've started doing, because I think people need to know some of the stuff that's going on in North Lanarkshire, but it also gives them the opportunity to come back. So the petition being set up, I think we're just under 300ish or something just now.
Yeah.
We'll keep it going, plug it here tonight as well as and I'll put it back up on the Facebook page.
People sign your petition in relation to roadworks, David?
You'll get it on my Facebook page, via the TikTok page, and from here as well. I think you guys actually covered it. And some of the other members of the guys that's there. So we kind of need to get a critical mass number, take it forward, and at least we get a chance to put it forward. I've raised this issue 3 times now with council on the basis of saying, why can't we have a more logical planning system rather than just saying, all the utility companies can come in and they can actually do the contract works when they like, but there's no joined up thinking saying, well, actually, if you do that, you're going to shut that road, and if you shut that road, it's going to have a knock on. The one that was in question in Wishaw actually encircled Wishaw General Hospital. Yeah. It was an absolute farce. So that's really what got me up.
But the question remains, David, do you think your petition will get heard at council?
Oh, I don't.
The petitions process, Barry, I've been kicked out of the chamber a few times.
Yes, and that's what I'm relating to, Greg. That's what I'm relating to.
But at least people will know that there's a few that are prepared to try and take it forward. Yeah. And that was the whole basis. Will anything happen from it? I've no idea. I'd like to think that somebody would listen to it. But on Greg's past history,
I feel bad for the kids.
Maybe we should put it forward without Greg's name on it.
Well, maybe that'll help.
I feel bad for the kids who are being held in at lunchtime because of the lateness. So they've been penalised.
Of course they are.
One of the
and they're getting detention at lunchtime.
That her employer actually took her into the office to say they didn't believe her because she was late to work, and the excuse was roadworks.
Right.
That can't happen. That's nonsense.
So one last point. I was laughing there at a wee comment that came in. I wonder how Stevie Penman will get on in South Ayrshire for setting their budget. Couldn't possibly comment, but I'm sure wee Willie will definitely sort that. Our good pal Willie Hogg. In addition to that, well, that's basically us. We've came to the end again, gents. It doesn't feel like an hour and a half again, but my goodness, time flies when you're having fun. Last point for me, and we've not done it for ages, political highlight of the week. I'm going to ask you really quickly, Gerry, political highlight of the week.
Just quickly, listening to the inane utterings of the Chancellor of the Exchequer as she tries to get her ducks in the row for increased taxes. So more Labour lies, actually. Just I listened back to a few videos of what they were saying before they were elected into power, and now, you know, all bets are off. So anything in that manifesto, if you've still got it, just use it for kindling or toilet paper or whatever you want to use it for.
Right, Baz, political highlight.
Yep, same as Gerry.
Oh, that's a cop out. That's a cop out. I'm going to say the same as Gerry.
It's an absolute
You get your
no-brainer.
golf clubs, mate. You're at your golf clubs, right?
He asked for political. We asked for political.
He did.
Davey.
For me, it'll be the political implications of the legal case that we mentioned right at the beginning, but also the way that this budget that's coming up between now and February is handled and how it's exposed for what it is. I think there's a lot of political fallout to come for that.
Well, I've seen my political highlight of the week today, believe it or not, and it's not the court case in Dundee. It's actually Douglas Alexander coming with wee Frank McNally carrying his pieces, and he took him to some school today. And Douglas Alexander has basically been announced as the key person to run Labour's Scottish election campaign along with Anna Sarwar. How do you think that campaign will fare with the Scottish people?
I think it'll fare as well as it did in 2007. See, anything that Douglas Alexander is involved in, it is going to go through the floor at great speed.
Oh my
So I'm looking
goodness.
forward to that.
Well, sorry, on you go, Dave. Kirk, last one.
It's genetic because his sister effectively oversaw the demise of Dundee University.
That's correct. Well, anyway, on that bombshell, this has been What's the Point? Join us again next week, where no doubt we'll have more fun and shenanigans to be discussing.
No doubt, Gregory.
And as I said, we'll announce our guests later in the week. Thanks very much for joining us.
It's your thing. Do what you wanna do. I can't tell you what the song can do.